So I received a great question today. I actually didn't even get done reading the message, but it was from Pandir's Box, James at Pandir's Box, and this is Joseph at JohnTheHutDweller, or Yusef, doesn't matter. I don't really get hung up on the translation of the name, but the name is important. So it's from James, or Jacob, or Yakub, or whatever. And he wrote, why does your church, and this is his words, not mine, why does your church have Gnostic and Catholic ideas that no early writer had? The early church fathers, where do they have these Gnostic ideas of hell? They don't have them. Your church adopts the Gnostic view of hell from Justin, and the church fathers adopt a Latin view of this. Can you explain this to me? Absolutely. This is the one I really want to get to. Let me read next. Next, why did your church wait to schism to excommunicate the Romans? The Orientals broke off after the Third Council, yet the Eastern Church stayed with them. Also, what is your take on Nestorius? I'll get to the first one first. Orthodoxy passes down all that which is believed by everybody at all times, or that which the church has always taught. So nothing needs to be written down about it. The church fathers, trying to go back to the church fathers to figure out orthodoxy, is really a strange, screwy view. It's actually a Western scholarly type of Protestantism. You don't go back to the church fathers to get our theology, just like we don't look to the New Testament to get our theology. That's everything that we've had. We've always believed the things that we believe. Sounds strange, doesn't it? The idea of hell didn't need to be written down. Everybody knew it. In these things like heaven and hell, they're allegory, they're myth, they're parable, they're true, they're facts, all of them. Just like I believe it was Tertullian when he's explaining about the Eucharist, he says it is the actual body and blood of Christ. And then he says it's a symbol of the body and blood of Christ, which is it's both. What did he mean by it? Doesn't matter. That's what he meant. But no, in his view, see, they took this as wrong. And no, he could have not understood it. Actually, nobody really understands Orthodoxy. Not completely, not fully. So the way that I think you're trying to do it in a scholarly way, yeah, is to go back and try to find the root of all these ideas, and it doesn't really work like that. Orthodoxy's view of hell is the accurate one. When we go back in scriptures, as we see, it lines up perfectly with what Christ said in the New Testament. Everything about hell, all of the things line up perfectly. When I heard about the river of fire, and I said, but that's not in the New Testament. Then I actually went back and looked about the worm never dying and it consumes in the fire and the darkness and all this. And oh, it absolutely doesn't. When you have that view, everything in the New Testament about hell makes sense. Yeah, but there's nothing wrathful about it. It's not. The gates of hell are locked from the inside. Even that statement, it never needed to be written down. It's always been contained. So the idea that we don't find writings or this or that, how did you get this view? It was a view that was passed down, just like the things in iconography. Well, St. Christopher having a dog's head. Shouldn't somebody have corrected that, or shouldn't some? But it's not about changing anything. It's about passing down that which was given to us, and not trying to add to it or take away from it. That's why the Romans got in trouble. Why did they wait so long to excommunicate from each other? Well, they weren't really on speaking terms. I mean, if you look at it, really, the differentiation between the East and the West, or the change that really occurred, is really in the 4th century. It's the 4th through 7th centuries that's the real problem. All these views of Augustine, Cyprian. Cyprian, he only really had one good idea, and that's that outside of the church there is no salvation. That's pretty much the only words that we hold on to. Well, he was saying the Roman church, the church in Rome. But in the way of saying he was correct. Now, on everything else, Stephen the Greek, the Pope of Rome, I think was totally correct. Smacked down Cyprian. I think Cyprian was a mix of the Doantinist or Donatist, however you want to pronounce it, with Catholicism. There's a little bit of Pelagianism in there. But let me go back to your question and see the exact wording. Yeah, it was a long time coming, of course, and even with Photius. Was Photius? Yeah. When he saw on the sides of the church, I mean, that was what, 900 AD? And it wasn't until 1054 that they excommunicated each other. The councils within Orthodoxy, you'll have a council and then it'll be accepted 300 years later, or it'll be dismissed and then accepted. And there are other councils that we don't accept because we see how what the truth is that survives through time, what Orthodoxy affirms. They could have a council tomorrow, and it wouldn't be considered ecumenical for another couple hundred years. Why? Because it's a thing that the church is a living thing. It's the experience of the church, and in the end, it expels the heresies and keeps what's orthodox. And this is that's what happens. It's not like in the West where overnight you have the Pope make a decision, then it's changed, and that's it. It's not orthodox. That's the West. So the schism with the West was a long time coming. And it was actually the West that excommunicated the East first. It was a little idiot priest that couldn't speak Greek that it got angry when he was in the court, and he excommunicated the East, and in response, the East excommunicated the West. And then we had the Crusades less than 50 years later. Coincidence? I think not, but okay. So that's how Orthodoxy runs its course. The Orientals broke out after 3 councils, yet the Eastern Church stayed on with them. Yeah, there wasn't really a clean-cut break with the Orientals and the Eastern part, even though it's the same word. That's why there's no. I mean, they accept some of the Eastern saints. After that, the Eastern accept some of their saints even afterwards. There's no real clear division. It was just those who objected to the hypostatic union, the way it was shown in the Council of Chalcedon. And there were always times when, okay, Alexandria was out of communion with the rest of the sees, or Rome was, or I mean, Rome had Honorius, who was a Monophysite, for God's sake, as a pope. And what is your take on Nestorius? Nestor the Ugly, as we call him in the liturgy. Apparently he was ugly. He made a point of not saying Theotokos, not having Mary as the mother of God, which saying Mary, the only things we have about Mary in the East are that which relates to Christ in the hypostatic union. It only points to Christ. If we call her Christotokos, well, then the mother of Cyrus and the mother of King David are Christotokos. If we say, what was it? Homeotokos, or whatever. I don't know that much about Greek. Whatever the mother of the man or the son of man, we could say that about anybody, or the mother of the king. No. When you say mother of God, that which the heavens could not contain was in her womb, born forth, was, yes, she was the only one to give birth to the divine. Now, she gave birth to his physical form. You had the Son that existed in heaven for all eternity, came down, took flesh, the only time that's ever happened. And she was the vehicle for his physical body. Nothing spiritual. She didn't give birth to the Trinity. She didn't give birth to the Son. She gave the Son she did give birth to the Son. I shouldn't say that. She wasn't the originator of the Son. She was the one that her body clothed the Son in flesh. you have a hypostatic union. And Nestorius, his brand of Syrian Christianity, I think they had some other weird stuff about the Holy Spirit too. They had some strange views on that, that it was a blind force, or that that it was just God's will or something like that. Which it's kind of funny. Even saying that it's God's will is actually correct, but just saying it's only this or it's not that is where you get into trouble. It's where Protestants, even the faith alone people, I'm willing to accept that that's a valid mystical view of Christianity, of saying Christ died for my sins, I have no more sin, I'm going to go and walk freely in love and hope. Okay, I'm for that idea. But to say that that is the only way to exclusion of everything else is where we get into trouble. And this is where the heretics came in, when they'd invent their new teachings, or say this teaching is above everything else and it excludes all everything else. No. So, yeah, the church holds on to what's true. And it's a living spoken thing, more an acted out thing, more than it is something that you go back into the pages and read. That's why I tell people, go to your local Orthodox church, talk to the guy at All Saints Monastery, Archbishop Azar. You'll get a clearer picture than you will of trying to reform Orthodoxy from the Church Fathers. Peace to you. I hope this answered your question. If it doesn't matter, I don't really get hung up on the translation of the name, but the name is important. So it's from James or Jacob or Yakub or whatever. And he wrote, why does your church, and this is his word. Sorry, received a great question today. I actually didn't even get done reading the message, but it was from Pandir's box, James at Pandir's box, and this is Joseph at JohnTheHutDweller, or Yusef. I'll get to the first one first. Orthodoxy passes down all that which is believed by everybody at all times, or that which the church has always teach. So nothing needs to be written down about it. The church fathers, trying to go back to the church fathers to figure out orthodoxy, is really a strange, screwy view. This is the one I really want to get to. Let me read next. Why did your church wait to schism to excommunicate the Romans? The Orientals broke off after the Third Council, yet the Eastern Church stayed with them. Also, what is your take on Nestorius? It's not mine. Why does your church have Gnostic and Catholic ideas that no early writer had? The early church fathers, where do they have these Gnostic ideas of hell? They don't have them. Your church adopts the Gnostic view of hell from Justin, and the church fathers adopt a Latin view of this. Can you explain this to me? Absolutely.